Welcome to the Empowered Podcast, episode number 83. Today, we are going to talk about the pages that make your website, whether it's for your blog, your podcast, your online store, whatever it is. We're going to talk about the 5 pages that turn that from a casual hobby site, something that you just do for fun, and turn that into a business. We're going to look at those pages, how you can improve those pages, and we're also going to talk about how some of the biggest guys in the industry, all the popular bloggers and podcasters, we're going to look at those sites briefly and see if they make the mark, if they make the cut, and if they're doing the exact same things that we're going to talk about today. Thanks for listening. Let's go right into the episode. Just as an FYI, if you have not checked out my blog to business transformation email course, you should absolutely check that out, because this podcast episode is an expansion of that lesson. So if you listen to this and you like the content, you like the information, go to ElleryWells.com/30 days and enroll for that. I start on the first Tuesday of every month, and I deliver the lessons all right to your inbox. Nothing to worry about, nothing to go and log in and check, just right to your inbox. You can scroll right through on your phone, on your computer, whatever it is, and get all of the content. But if you're blogging for fun, you might not be putting much thought into the pages that you have available for your visitors. And that applies whether you are blogging or if you have a podcast as well. You might just not be putting a whole lot of thought into it. But when you want to transform your blog, your podcast, your website into a revenue-generating business, there are 5 pages specifically that need your attention, possibly more than any other page. And every successful website has these recognizable features in these pages. They each have certain pages that make visitors feel at home, and pages that share information and feature new content, as well as these pages that add personality to the site. In fact, I just in the last couple days finished my Start Here page. So if you go to ElleryWells.com/start-here, you can also see it in the header. It's up in the menu navigation. You can see what I've done there. And I've also created a FAQ page here in the last month. So in the last couple days and in the last month, I have added 2 pages that really serve to show more of my personality. And sometimes it doesn't come out in words. Sometimes it doesn't come out when you're sitting in an empty room behind a microphone. And I really put a lot of time and effort and intention into making those personality-driven pages. And if you don't have those kinds of pages, I would suggest maybe throwing those out there. We'll get to those here a little bit more here in just a second, but that's my Start Here page and FAQ page. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about the 5 pages that transform your blog and your podcast into a business, how those pages are laid out, and how you can create your own. But before we get started, let's take a look at some of the most popular blogs that you might be familiar with online. If you look at smartpassiveincome.com, it is run by my friend, fellow podcaster and blogger, Pat Flynn. If you look at his top menu, he has home, about, blog, Start Here, podcast, Ask Pat, and resources. Those are the, 7? Those are the 7 tabs that are at the top of smartpassiveincome.com. Now let's look at michaelhyatt.com. He has home, Start Here, about, podcast, work with me, and store. So both sites have home, both sites have about, both have podcast, and then Michael Hyatt throws in work with me and store, where Pat has resources and Ask Pat, which is another podcast that Pat Flynn does. Let's look at Entrepreneur on Fire, one of the most popular podcasts that's not run by a celebrity. He has Start, Resources, Podcast, Blog, Products, Archives, Newsletter, About, and Contact. So About's on there, Contact's on there, Products, Archive, Podcast. I'm just running through the list and seeing where that overlap is. These are what some of the most popular websites on the internet have across the top of their page. So if these guys are doing this, shouldn't we look and figure out if we should do the exact same thing on our blogs, on our podcast sites, where our show notes are, where our resources are, and all those things? So let's break down what these 5 best pages are for your website. The first one, let's look at the home page. Every one of those sites had a link back to the home, except for Entrepreneur on Fire. Now, there's a reason why you might not want to have a home on your menu. A lot of times, if you link your icon, which is typically in the top left-hand corner of your site, that usually leads back to your home page. And in the case of Entrepreneur on Fire, it does. So maybe they are using that as the replacement so they don't have to use up menu space. But that's something that you'll have to decide on. But here's what you want on this homepage. We're not necessarily talking about the menus today. We're talking about the actual pages. So what do you want on a homepage? How do you make it effective? How do you convert visitors to subscribers, to listeners, and to readers? So here's what your homepage should do well. The first thing is it should tell people why they will be better after reading your site. And if people aren't going to be better, why are they there in the first place? Better could mean happier. It could mean thinner or healthier. It could be more prepared to cook a delicious recipe. But your homepage, in that header, in that top part of your website, it needs to tell people why they will be better after landing on your site. And if you don't have that figured out, you need to get that figured out. And hopefully when you visit empoweredpodcast.com or ElleryWells.com, you will know that I am here. My purpose is to empower and equip entrepreneurs. And to me, that means empower is the mindset, equip is the tools, and I want to help aspiring entrepreneurs become actual entrepreneurs who are out there doing great things. And I want you to be able to get that message by visiting my site. The next thing that your homepage should do well is it should direct visitors where you want them to go. And that's where we get into the menu. That's when we just looked at SPI, we looked at Michael Hyatt. We want to know what these big guys have on their menu. And the purpose of the menu is to direct your visitors where you want them to go. You don't have to list every page. You don't have to list, the defunct page that you haven't updated in a long time. You don't have to do any of those things. But the menu is there to serve as a guidepost, as a roadmap to point people in the right direction. So I just changed my menu in the last couple hours. So if you haven't been to the site here in a couple days, if you haven't been to empoweredpodcast.com, go there now, and you'll see how my menu looks now. You'll see home, start here, about, blog, resources, podcast, and work with me. What does that tell you about coming to my site? Well, start here. Hopefully people will click on that, and there's a list of resources and a little bit about who I am. I tell you about who Ellery Wells is. I want you to go to the blog. I want you to get these resources. I want to show you how I can help you. I want you to listen to the podcast, and then finally work with me. And my menu should convey that message very clearly. Pat's does, Michael's does, and John Tumas's does. The next thing is the main highlighted column, the part that's right in the middle of your page. Now, all 3 of these big name sites are doing this slightly different. My site used to look a little bit more like Michael Hyatt's. Now it's kind of a cross between Pat's and Entrepreneur on Fire. If you just go to ElleryWells.com, you'll see a landing page that directs you through some information. On Michael Hyatt's site, if you scroll down through his header, and Entrepreneur on Fire has this as well. It's to get people to sign up for the email list. And if you're not doing that, you need to get people on your list. And make sure you listen to the episode where I talked to Ben Kruger, episode number 63, about why we say the money is in the list. So if you don't believe me, make sure you go back and listen to this. So John Dumas and Michael Hyatt are collecting emails there at the very beginning. And my site now walks you through that process. But you could have this main blog column. Once you get past these opt-ins, this main column should highlight new content, any new products or new features. And we're not talking about the sidebar just yet. We're talking about that main column. Usually it's in the middle of the screen. If there is a sidebar, the sidebar is it's narrower and it's either on the left or the right. Those are pretty common terms, so we won't go too much into detail. But you want to highlight your new content, new posts, new podcast episodes, all of those things in the main column. And then, of course, the sidebar. You want to encourage opt-ins. You want to talk a little bit about who you are and some of those things. But let's take a little bit of a closer look. The header is the topmost image on your site, and your header should be large enough and clear enough to tell people what they get by landing on your site, and tell people that they've landed in the right place. If you are doing a good job branding through your social media efforts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, those kinds of things, if you're doing a good job of branding, any logos that you have out on those social sites should match the logo of your website. If people are searching the internet and they stumble upon you, they want to know they're in the right place. If you have a fairly common name, like if you were one of the John Smiths out there and your website was John C. Smith or John L. Smith or something like that, your visitors want to know they have the right John Smith. And even if your name is a little bit more unique or whatever, people still want to know they are in the right place. And a good header will contain your brand or your business name and any slogan you might have for your business or blog. And again, mine's up there right at the very beginning, empowering and equipping entrepreneurs. And the header is likely the first thing that people are going to see when they land on your page. So make it good. Even if people land on your page on a mobile site, your header is still the first thing that they see. It's going to be the thing that's just out of the reach of their thumb. So make those headers really stand out and make them look really good. When it comes to the menu, avoid the temptation to fill your menu with every page on your site. I see a lot of new people do one of two things. They either have nothing on their menu and you can't navigate anywhere, or they have every page under the sun, and they have a bunch of drop downs and navigations and things like that, and they're just a person, they just started, and they think everything should be on the menu. But here's something for you. A good menu is simple, and it directs visitors where you want them to go. So I'm going to repeat that. A good menu is simple, it's clean, and it directs people where you, the site owner, wants them to go. And again, I've changed my menu quite a few times over the last couple of years. I've added new things. I've rearranged things. I just made a whole bunch of changes. And your menu doesn't have to be static either. You can be continually adding new things or taking away things or shifting them around. Now, a quick tip for you, if you go into your WordPress dashboard under Appearance and Menus, if you want to create a sub-menu, if you wanted to have your About page and then a sub-page like mine where it's a FAQ or contact, just in your WordPress dashboard, drag that little icon over and then hit Save, and it'll do exactly that. It'll create a sub-menu. And if you can make every tab on your menu fit in a single line, even better. Double rows for your menu just complicates things. It doesn't make things look easier, and it's somewhat hard on a mobile visitor especially. So a bad menu is cluttered with a link to everything and has several complicated lists, which nobody likes, nobody wants, and a good menu is simple and it directs visitors where you want them to go. A good menu should give you a peaceful sensation so you don't feel cluttered. You have a direction and you know exactly what you're supposed to do when you visit the site. The main column, if you used to go with the blog format for your page, which I did up until about April of 2015, my home page was a blog page, and Michael Hyatt's is still that way. Again, he's got the large kind of above the fold opt-in box, but then it gets into the blog. If you've chosen to go with this blog format on your homepage, make sure your most recent posts are at the top. People don't want old information, and they prefer the latest and greatest, and you can also place ads strategically in that main column, but don't use too many. I'll give you some bonus information that's I haven't shared with hardly anybody else at this point. I did the Sumo Me heat map. Sumo Me and their tools are something that I highly recommend. Suggest that you install those on your site. They won't make anything slower. They run on JavaScript. I know that gets technical for half a second there, but you can see where people are clicking on your site. And what I found, I used to have 10 to 12 blog posts on my homepage. Nobody scrolled past the first 5. And I was kind of depressed by that. I wanted people to go back and look at the older posts because they're still really good. I try to provide a lot of evergreen content that doesn't necessarily expire. And I found that nobody was clicking on after the first 4 or 5 posts. Nobody was scrolling down all of that way. So if you if you have a whole bunch of posts on your home page, people aren't going to be clicking through it anyway, and it's a diminishing returns. It's like the long tail. A whole bunch of people will click on the first one, a fewer number of people will click on the second one, and even a smaller group of people will click on the third one, and so on. So really make sure that your fresh new content is as easy to find and at the top of this main column. Next, again, we have the sidebars. So make sure that you have an email opt-in form above the fold. That's the top 30% of your page. If you go to your home page, everything that you see without scrolling at all is technically above the fold, and you want that opt-in to be top right and center, something that's easy to find. And since you are trying to turn your blog or your podcast into a business, make sure you have a headshot above the fold too. You know, let people know who you are. That's one of your about page, and we'll get to this here in a second, but your about page is one of the most popular pages on your site because people want to know who you are. We don't want to do business or read the blogs of these concrete and steel companies, and we want to have a human-to-human connection. And I'll tell you what, the more personality I put into my blog, my podcast, and into my work in general, the more people like it. People want to know my weird side. They want to know, that I'm from Texas and love chips and salsa and sci-fi. And I've gotten more than one comment on my sidebar. I have a little blurb about me, and I talk about how I really like David Gray and David Lanz. So David Gray is kind of the folky pop music, and David Gray is mostly piano and some orchestra music, and that's what I listen to when I work, and the other one's what I listen to kind of when I'm looking to just have fun and relax. And I've gotten comments on that. Oh, hey, I love David Lanz too. And the more personality you put into whatever it is that you're doing online, the more you will be a real person and the more people will resonate with that. The last thing on your homepage, let's talk about the footer for a second. Don't forget about the footer of your homepage. It's the last thing that people see when they're scrolling through your site, and it can be extremely valuable real estate if you use it well. Now, full disclosure, right now, I don't have a whole lot on my footer. I've changed the layout, and I'm putting more of these elements embedded in that main column and in the content of a blog post or a podcast episode. So right now, as of, May of 2015, my footer is somewhat slimmed down. So it's not one of those cases where do what I say, not do what I do, but let's take a look real quick at what the big guys have. There's no opt-in in the SPI footer, although there's a menu, there's a featured on list, and then he's got another menu about terms and disclaimers. Michael Hyatt in his footer, you have to scroll quite a bit. He's got an about me. He's got a featured product, which is his book that I actually own, platform. And then there's a list of resources. So he's making a great use of the footer. Both of those guys are. And let's see what Entrepreneur on Fire has. Actually, not a whole lot. He's using a plugin to keep some popular things on his sidebar, which I have noticed and started thinking about using on my site as well. But there's not a whole lot of menu there either. There's a terms of service, who built the site, and those kinds of things. So your footer is the last thing that people see, and I normally recommend putting something for social proof or a social connection page, Facebook and Twitter links and something like that. But whatever you want in your footer, be smart about it. Be intentional about it. Make it either clean and sleek or something that will drive visitors to a deeper page on your site or to connect with you socially. Don't make it a dumping ground for miscellaneous pages or posts or resource links or something like that. So that sums up your home page. Just to recap, it's the header, it's the menu, it's the main column, sidebar, and footer. The next thing that we want to look at is the contact page. And we do not have a contact page in the menu of SPI. We don't have one in the menu of Michael Hyatt. But we do have one with a cool little fire effect on Entrepreneur on Fire. It's in the main there. But again, we're not talking necessarily about menus. We're talking about the page itself. Your contact page should provide multiple ways for people to get in contact with you. You can provide social profiles, emails, phone numbers, or the traditional contact form. I have all of those things. Sometimes people are just looking for ways to connect with you other than email. They want to know how to find your Google Plus page. If Google Plus isn't around when you happen to be listening to this, it could be a place for you to send them to your Twitter account or something like that. But I also include the traditional contact form. Now, as you get more and more communication through that contact form, you might want to add more information or different information to the contact page. I have started saying, hey, if you want to guest post, click here, and it takes visitors to a different page on my site because there are specific instructions on how to submit a guest post. And I was getting a lot of people submitting through the contact form, well, somewhat spam, but it was people asking about guest posts and they weren't following the format. So instead of processing that and ended up not having a great experience for me or the person, I just said, hey, if you're interested in guest posting, click here first. And that helped filter out a lot of that and answer types of questions for people who might have been interested in doing a guest post. But make sure you put in a reasonable effort also to prevent spam. Spam is everywhere, and there are people sending spam now. It's not just robots and text and all those other things. There's actually people that'll go in, real people somewhere, and copy and paste something into a contact form and hit spam. There's not much you can do about that when there's a real person involved, but you can do a pretty good job of preventing the robot spam. When you first start out, though, you probably won't get much, if any, but it's better safe than sorry by using some of these spam tools. I just ask a simple question and people have to check a box or uncheck a box. If you use click to tweet, you have to uncheck a box to prove you're human. And there are other spam filters that come in the way of a WordPress plugin that you can look at, and I won't get into those, but you can just do a Google search on those. But preventing spam is much better than getting those 3 a.m. emails from some Russian somewhere trying to sell you handbags and lip gloss. That's what I got. And then I started getting e-cigarettes too. Those were the big things that most of my spam messages were about. Check out this bedazzled bag or this fantastic lip gloss, and then, like I said, e-cigarettes, which I think are kind of stupid anyway. The next page, the About page, and this is going to be one of the most popular pages on your site. Let me give you an idea on how popular my About page is. I'm going to pull up my Google Analytics here, and I'm going to tell you just over the last few months what percentage of my visitors have gone to my About page. So I'm logging into Google Analytics, and if you don't have Google Analytics, you need to. If you do, once you log in, go to behavior, and what you want to go is down to site content. And I'm going to go to all pages. Now, this is good for me. My most popular pages are actually the Empowered Podcast. That's one. A couple blog posts here. A couple landing pages where I'm offering free resources in my products page. So that's actually pretty good. Usually the About page is in the top 10. For me, it's the top 12. So my homepage is number 1. I have some blog post pages, and the number 10 is my products, number 9 is my podcast, and the number 12 is my About page. So if you can check this, you will see just how many hundreds or thousands of page views your About page is getting. So there's no doubt your About page is one of the most popular pages on your site, and it should tell people who you are, what you stand for, and what you are about. Your About page should get people to like you. If it does nothing else, your About page should make people like you better. That's the whole purpose of you adding more personality, is because we want to like you. And that kind of personal information will help you do that. So I recommend a personal touch with a non-formal photograph that provides an example of your unique personality. On mine, if you go to ellerywells.com/about, or again, you can click it in the top menu up at the top of your page, you'll see a picture of Ashley, my wife, and me on a vacation that we took to Costa Rica. And it's fun, and it's a vacation picture. We're in front of a waterfall, and it doesn't really serve any purpose other than to say, hey, I'm a family guy, I enjoy having fun, and I'm a real person. And sometimes that's a big hurdle when we're talking about online. If you're just blogging, you don't do video or podcast, any robot can pay, or any robot can put up text, or anybody can pay someone in a non-English speaking country to write blog posts. But the voice behind the podcast and the face behind the video add those touches. And if you can make those pictures, these fun pictures that really don't serve any other business purpose, if you can add those to your About page, people will really start to resonate with you and know that you are a real person. Also, a good About page tells a reader or a visitor or a customer what they'll get by reading your site. Again, they want to know why they're here, the What's in It for Me, WIIFM radio, if you've heard that, What's in It for Me. About page will tell you what they're going to get by being on your site, or what they will get by subscribing to your email list. And you want your About page to be both personal and instructional. So I have kind of this 5 W's and an H rule for my About page. So again, if you've got a pen or a paper, you might want to write this down. Make sure you go into detail into each one of these things on your About page. This 5 W and an H. Who you are and who your clients are, what you do and what makes you an expert, when you started, where you learned, where you live in the world, and where you are in your journey, why you're so passionate, and why people need you, why people need to read your site. And then the H, how did you get where you are? And how can you help? How did you, that? All of those things tell people about your journey, and they tell you that either you are just like them, and if you did it, maybe I can do it too, or it says, hey, I'm the expert. I have researched. I have gone to school. I have put in my dues, and I'm the expert. All of those things, you can convey that message in this who, what, when, where, why, and how. It's a pretty simple formula. I think we learned that in second grade or something when we were learning about questions and statements, sentences, and all that stuff. But it's pretty simple, but it's pretty profound when you look at the effects that it can have on your website. What are some other things that you might want to include on an about page? Your name. I'll tell you a funny story. I was trying to be when I was first starting, I didn't want to talk about myself in third person. I didn't want to say, hey, my name is Ellery and I'm all this stuff. But someone from the UK, and I can't remember his name, but I do remember the voicemail that he gave me, sent me through SpeakPipe. And this was long before I even started a podcast. Actually, I think it was about the right time, or about the same time, because that's when I was starting to use SpeakPipe to do my voicemails. He sent me, and I think his name is Caleb. I don't want to say his last name, but he had this really cool accent, and he says, hey, Ellery, I'm not going to do the accent. You hoped for it, but you're not going to get it. He says, hey, Ellery, I loved your website, but it took me a while to find out your name. I had to dig through 2 or 3 pages before he found my name. And he even went to my about page, and I think at the time, the only place where my name was listed was where it says like Ashley and Ellery Wells in Costa Rica or something like that. And people want to know your name. If your URL, and at the time mine wasn't ElleryWells.com, I was using something else. If your URL, and probably even if it is, tell people your name. Make it easy for people to call you by your first name and connect with you. Don't make people search. Don't make the same mistake that I did, even if it potentially leads to a really cool voicemail message from Caleb in the UK. Another thing is a description of what visitors get by being on your site. Spell that out. We talked about it before. That's part of the about page component, but spell it out. On my site, I offer the very best, and fill in the blank, the very best recipes, the very best advice for social media. On SPI, Pat says, I offer myself as the crash test dummy. Entrepreneur on Fire says, I offer the best entrepreneur interviews 7 days a week. Michael Hyatt says, I am your virtual mentor. Let's actually see what he has on his about page. He says, I'm Michael Hyatt, the best-selling author of this. I've been blogging since way back when, and here is all the stuff that you can find out about me. And he's got a nice few biography pictures and some of those things. But a good about page should tell you what people will get by being on their site. And then, of course, opt-in forms. If people are going to your about page, they want to know who you are. They care. And they want to know that you care. And if they are going to there, because about pages, they don't teach a lesson. They don't give you the 5 SEO tips, or they don't give you how to start a mastermind in 4 easy steps or whatever. About pages are strictly about the person. So if they were going there, they want to know about you. And that's a perfect opportunity to say, hey, members get full access to this, become a member. Or if you want to join the community, I'll give you this. Add those opt-in forms to your about page. And mine hasn't changed just a whole lot, but mine says, hey, I'm Ellery. It says hi. I should say hey, because I say hey more. And then it gives what we just talked about, a blurb about who I am. And then it walks you through the early years, the education, the work years. It tells you what I do, who I am, a little bit of something personal. There's at least 2 opt-in forms on my about page. And then I tell you where I lived, where I learned, why I'm so passionate, and when I got started. And again, that when is important, because if you say, man, it took me 27 years to get to this point, and someone looks at your site and they're not all that enthused about where you've come in 27 years, they might just throw up their hands and say, screw it, I'm not going to do it. If it took Ellery 27 years, I'm not going to do it either. Well, people want to know how long it took, and if it was a short process, if you can shorten their process too, that'll be pretty amazing. And since your About page gets so much traffic, it's a good idea to, again, have those opt-in pages, at least one, maintain them up there in the sidebar, and then a couple places there in the middle, because once visitors read your story and see what you're all about, they will be primed to subscribe. And if you are curious, the tool that I use for my opt-in boxes, I use Opt-in Skin. So if you go to empoweredpodcast.com/83, you will see a link to where you can check out Opt-in Skin. It's an affiliate link. If you like it, I get a small commission. If you don't, you can move on, or you don't have to use my link at all. I also use Optimize Press for a lot of my pop-ups and opt-in boxes as well. So those links will be in empoweredpodcast.com/83. And one last thought, don't say we on your About page. I almost said don't say we on our. That doesn't make sense either. Don't say we on your About page. If there is no we and there is no us, say I. Own it. Own your independence. Own the fact that this is your blog, your space, whatever. And own that it's just you, that you're a solopreneur, that you're a small shop. If you don't have employees, don't try to sound like you do. I did that wrong for a long time, and it's just much more personal when you say I. And one other thing about the About page, don't waste the space, or don't bore your readers with a disclaimer about all the opinions being your own. A, we know that they're your own, and B, that statement won't prevent you from getting sued or fired. It's funny to me that people put that even on their Twitter profiles, and if you are tweeting on behalf of a company and you still sign it with your initial, they can still fire you if you say something stupid. So don't waste that space on your page. Don't waste it on your social profiles or anything else. The next page that we want to look at is the blog page, an archive of your most recent blog posts. If you have a podcast, don't include your podcast episodes on your blog page, because sometimes people want to read, sometimes they want to listen, sometimes they want to watch. And in fact, I even had a read, watch, and listen tabs on my menu bar to give people those different types of content, but don't mix and mingle. If you have a blog page, just have blog posts. If you have a podcast page, just have podcast pages. So you should have your homepage and then a /blog page, that's just a catalog of these blogs. And since this isn't your landing page, you can include 10 to 15 of your most recent posts. And again, the number is completely up to you. On my /blog page, honestly, I did not use the heat map, so I don't know how many people scrolled through any of those. But what works the best for me, and I'll give you another bonus tip here, what has worked best for me is embedding links in blog posts to older blog posts where I make reference to, or just straight up send people over there to get more information. That has really helped reduce bounce rate and increase page views, and I think people like that a whole lot. But don't put podcast episodes on a /blog page. A dedicated blog page allows visitors to easily find your blogs amongst all the other stuff that is on your site. And this is especially important if your homepage shows your products or store, like mine does now, instead of your blog posts. And websites with current blogs, meaning up-to-date recent blog posts. Those sites rank higher in Google search because they have fresh content. Even if you remove the dates from your post and they're not in the slug or in that URL, like mine are, you will very seldom find the dates on my blog posts or pages, and that's on purpose. But even if you hide that information, Google still loves new information. And sites with blogs also offer a reason for people to stick around before and after they browse for products. So if all you had when you went to empoweredpodcast.com was subscribe or buy, that probably wouldn't be all that interesting to you. It wouldn't be interesting to me, but people like to be able to read and interact. And by offering blog posts or a blog page, you're giving people another way to interact with you. The last page we want to talk about is the store page. And here, before we go into what I have to say about it, let's look and see what Pat and Michael and John have to say about it. So Pat Flynn, he does not have a store. But he's kind of the exception to the rule. Pat's site is all about passive income, and he offers a lot of affiliate links and those kinds of things. And that's how he made, good gosh, $153,397.47 last month, which is just, that's actually, way to go, Pat. That's about 60 grand, I think, more than in March. A number like that, it just blows my mind, and most of that comes from passive income resources. So for him to have a store, it would almost be counterproductive or counterintuitive, because those you have to create products so that you can sell products. Sometimes you have to ship and box and ship those products, and so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Pat to have that. However, on his resources page, it's a list of all of his affiliate links. So though he doesn't have a store, he sells products or recommends products and makes a boatload of money. So instead of a store page, he's got that resources page. Let's look at Michael Hyatt. If we look over here at michaelhyatt.com, one of his 6 pages, home, start here, about podcast, work with me, and then store is a list of all of the products that he has sold, his WordPress theme, his Get Published audio course, those kinds of things, all of his books. Michael Hyatt has a store tab. And once we head over to Entrepreneur on Fire, he doesn't have a store either, but he does have this income report saying that he made in April $298,195. That is quite a difference. John's income comes a lot from, he's got affiliates, but he also sells access to Podcaster's Paradise. That's where a big chunk of his money comes from. And in fact, if we click over to his monthly income report for April, we'll see that over half, or actually just under half of his income comes from Podcaster's Paradise, which is a product that he sells. So even though John doesn't have a store, just double checked. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He does. He has a products page. So he's got a podcasting course, free resources, and those things. So even though he doesn't have a store, he does have a products page. Here's the thing with the store page. If you plan to sell products from your website, which that's part of the reason why we're here, right? We want to make money and benefit the world with what we know. You need a dedicated store or products page. If you don't have a store page, you're left to sell via third-party sites like Amazon, Etsy, or something like that. If your store is on your site, you own it. There are no terms and conditions that can shift or change that you are subject to. For example, if Amazon decided, let's say your product was I don't know, health food, and they decided that there was too much risk and liability in health food, and they didn't want to sell that anymore, and they were just going to shut down that division. It wasn't making enough money. They'd gotten sued or whatever. You'd be losing all of your opportunity to sell if you were completely reliant on Amazon. And the same thing that has to do with Etsy. What if you're buying things at thrift stores and garage sales and turning around and selling them on Etsy? What if they updated their terms and conditions and said the only thing that we're going to allow people to sell on our website is originally crafted items, no reselling of products that somebody else has sold? You'd be out of luck. And by having the site on having the store on your site rather, you own it A to Z, soup to nuts, beginning to end, and you aren't subject to somebody else's business. If your store is on somebody else's site, you're renting their space at best and losing money at worst. Amazon takes a huge chunk of anything that you sell on their site, and I'm pretty sure Etsy does too. I'm not sure the percentages, but if you're using them as their distributor, they're going to take a large chunk of money because they're putting your product in front of their audience. And when you sell your product on somebody else's site or in somebody else's store, you are relying 100% on their ability to get your product in front of their audience, and you're relying on their terms and their conditions, their privacy policies, and everything else. And if they change their rules, they affect your business. And I'll tell you one thing about about books too. So all of my books that are on my site, some of them are also on Amazon. If you buy from me, I collect your first name, your email address, and we start building a relationship, or at least I hope we do. If you buy my book on Amazon, I have no way of knowing who you are. I have no access to your name, your email address, or anything like that. And if I want to offer any bonuses, or if I want to make changes to the product and send you the updated version, I have to go through Amazon to do it. And I can't reach you if I need to make those changes or corrections. And as I mentioned, episode 63 with Ben Kruger, the money is in the list. And what you're doing by selling your product on those other sites is you're helping those sites build their list, not necessarily helping you build yours. Not having a store or a product page would be like a bookstore giving away free previews of their books, but then directing you to buy those books on Amazon to make the actual purchase. And that's kind of a bad analogy because that's what I do. And if you've ever been in a Barnes & Noble or a Sam's or a Costco or something, if you've ever been in the bookstore and pulled up the Amazon app on your phone, you know what I'm talking about. So not having your products on your page is the exact same thing. You're like, hey, look at this cool stuff, but you have to go over here to buy it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and you don't have to have an SSL certificate. You can use products like I'll mention here in just a second to make it happen, but a store page listed on your menu will not only help people go directly to that store, but it will also tell people, it will inform them that you have a store in the first place. And that's kind of the thing, right? It's location, location, location. You have to be in the right location, and people can't buy if they don't know you have a store. People won't be able to visit your store if you don't A, tell them it's there, and B, make it easily accessible. And you can do both of those things by putting it up in that menu. And again, you can manage your store through digital downloads with a free WordPress plugin called Easy Digital Downloads. It's what I use in a combination with OptimizePress. I highly recommend Easy Digital Downloads and OptimizePress for that matter. But these products allow you to send or to sell stuff on your site, but then have PayPal or another payment processor handle that payment securely on their site, and then they'll get tossed right back to, toss may not be the right word, but they'll get redirected back to your site, to download and everything like that. And again, I manage my store's recurring payments and subscriptions and my coaching and mastermind programs and all of my events with custom buttons created with OptimizePress and PayPal. And with these free tools, although OptimizePress isn't free, Easy Digital Downloads is, and PayPal is, they just take a cut. With those free tools, you can create a really professional store with multiple products of various types for essentially free, all without having to worry about having a security or SSL certificate from your host. And now I want to talk about some bonus pages. We've talked about the 5 kind of, you gotta have these, the home page, the contact page, about page, blog page, and the store page. Now let's talk about some of these other pages that really just take it to the next level. The first one we talked about is the resources page. One of the quickest and easiest ways to help your audience is by sharing with them the resources that you use every single day. And this is what Pat Flynn had done. We talked about it just a minute ago, where he doesn't have a store, but he's got a resources page where he probably makes thousands of dollars every single month. Yeah, he's got a huge audience, but with affiliate links here, let's see, the top 3 are affiliates, a link to his free course on YouTube, another affiliate link, free trials with affiliate links. He's got all these things that help people, because if we think, hey, Pat Flynn is doing this, and if I do what Pat does, I can be successful too. That's the purpose of a resource page. On mine, I do the same thing. I accomplish those same goals. I want to tell people the tools that I use, so that if you use the tools that I use, not only can I help you with them, but you can do what I am doing. And part of my message is if I can do it, you can do it too. And by providing those resources, you are telling your audience, hey, these are the things, these are the tools, the resources, the things that are in my toolbox that you can use. Another reason why you might want a resources page is to earn affiliate referrals and commissions. You can direct people to the resources page, and if you don't want to sell a product, you can say, hey, you can support my business by buying products that you're going to use anyway through the links on this page. And again, a resources page is pretty nice, and it's a very passive way to earn money for your business. The next page is an FAQ page. Now I'm going to pull up my FAQ page because I want to tell you all of the questions that I have on that page and why you should have an FAQ page as well. It doesn't need to be on your main menu. It can be tucked under your about page or something like that. But here's why an FAQ, or frequently asked questions page, is a great marketing page. Where most of the pages on your site tend to be kind of a one-way communication. They tell you it's an opportunity to share what you're about, or it's a blog post where it teaches something. An FAQ page is an opportunity for you to tell people the questions that they should be asking you. And it's also a great way to actually answer those questions too. But let's say you want a way to tell people who your ideal client is. That doesn't turn into a blog post, and it doesn't make a very fun section on your about page. But if I put it on an FAQ page and I said, who do you typically work with? I can say, I love working with aspiring entrepreneurs. I say aspiring because I love helping people figure things out and get moving in the right direction. I answered that question, and I have been asked that question, but by putting it up on an FAQ page, I get to ask the questions that I want to be asked. How do you make money online is another question. Well, I make money through mastermind groups. I sell one-on-one coaching. I have a store. I have a membership site. And you get to position your products in a way that's not shoving product or advertisements down people's throats. It's a much more casual way to do it. And if you are doing it on purpose, you can use a really casual tone on your FAQ page that brings people in, draws people in, and shows people just a little bit more of your personality. I ask a question, what do you like to do in your spare time? And I tell you. And what if I don't buy it? Can I return it? Instead of having a stale, boring return policy, ask it on an FAQ page. So if you go to ElleryWells.com/FAQ, you can check out mine and see exactly what I've done there and see if any of your questions might be answered there as well. The last page that we want to talk about, this third of these kind of bonuses, the first resources, the second FAQ, the third one here is the Start Here page. And like I mentioned before, I just finished my Start Here page, and I'm kind of proud of it. I really like how it turned out. And here's what I want to share with you before I go into any more detail about this Start Here page. All of your pages don't have to be completely unique. There is some overlap, not a whole lot, between my Start Here page, my About page, and my Frequently Asked Questions page. And here's why. Each page serves to tell the customer why they should be on this site, why they should care, why they should pay attention, and what they will get by spending time with me. Or in your case, spending time with you. The content across these three, they can overlap maybe up to 30 or 40%. And the part of the reason why that's okay is because they're not going to bounce from your Start Here page to your About page to your Frequently Asked Questions page. They're not going to just read those in order and say, man, this is really redundant. I still wouldn't necessarily suggest that you copy and paste, maybe change it up a little bit, but it's okay to have content that overlaps. And Pat Flynn and I both have Start Here pages. On his menu, it's smack dab right in the middle. There are 3 items on the right and 3 items to the left of it on my page. It's right next to my home. It's the first menu item next to the home page. And I tell you once again, who is this site for? And this is another opportunity to say more about your background. It's an opportunity for me to say, hey, I'm just an average dude. I went to school like I was told. I got married like I was told. I wanted to. But I followed things in order. I'm just an average dude, and I went to corporate America, and I got burned. I'm just like you, and this is an opportunity for me to tell you that part about my life. And if you want to know what are you going to find by being on this, I tell you that too. I tell you my mission statement, what it means to be empowered, and what it means to have me trying to empower you and equip you. Part of my mission statement, I get to explain it a little bit more. And then if people want to get more information, here's how. And then the second one is I've directed you to a few podcast episodes, leading off with episode number 49, which is one of my most popular episodes, one of my most emotional episodes. If you haven't listened to that one, I highly recommend that you do. And not just for my sake, but for your sake as well. It's the one where the people, more than any other episode, have contacted me and thanked me for doing that episode. Ashley interviews me, my wife interviews me, and we talk about what it was like making the transition, how I got fired from my job, and how I was kind of forced or thrown into entrepreneurship. And we just kind of open that wound and talk about it 6 or 7 months after the event. And it's one of the most impactful podcast episodes that I have done. And this is an opportunity for me to tell you that. You won't see that anywhere else on the site other than by going to the podcast. But if someone wants to know how they can get in from more information, there it is. There's an opt-in form, but there's also, hey, check out these podcast episodes because they're really influential. And then if somebody wants to get started, again, we're on a Start Here page. I want to tell them who I am, a little bit about what I'm about, how they can stay involved if they want to. And if they want to take action, if they want to do what I do, guess what? I've got 2 steps for them. I show them exactly how they can get started and what they need to do. And there's even a video of me walking people through that process. And then it wraps up with, what else do I have available? And it's an opportunity for me to say, hey, you know, if you like this stuff, I love the DIY entrepreneur, but if you want, you know, some one-on-one coaching, I have that available too. If you want some masterminds, I have that available as well. It's not intrusive. It's just tucked there towards the bottom, and it's not forcing anything down anybody's throat, but it's just saying, hey, this is here and it's available. And then the last thing is just, hey, thanks for stopping by. I'm glad you're here. And, you know, if you want to download some more tools, here's a link to get those, and it takes you to an opt-in page. So one thing that hopefully you've picked up on all of this, something that you want to have on every single page, is an opt-in form, and put more and more and more personality into what you're doing. People want to know about you. People want to know about the person behind the blog, behind the business. And there you have it. Those are the pages, the 5 and then kind of 3 bonus pages there. These are the pages that will help you turn your blog into a business, your website into a business, direct people where you want them to go, deliver the content and the information that you want to deliver, and then add people into your sales funnel, getting people involved in the community. And like John Dennis said in our experts call for the membership site, which you can hear and watch, actually, you can watch the full thing once you become a member under the experts calls. You'll find that right there. As John Dennis says, this is the indoctrination process. It's kind of a weird term, I think, the indoctrination. It sounds a little bit like a evil mad scientist, but all of this to say, this is who I am. This is what I stand for, and this is what I'm all about. And you getting that kind of information yourself, your personality, who you are, what you stand for in front of your audience. If you want the links and all of the information we talked about in today's episode, go over to empoweredpodcast.com/83. So empoweredpodcast.com/83 for all of the links and the resources. And again, remember, this is a in-depth look, an expanded look at one of the lessons that we have in the Blog to Business Transformation completely free, 100% free email course. If you want to sign up for that, there will be a link also at empoweredpodcast.com/83. This is lesson number 3 in that email course, and it will show you exactly how you can turn your blog into a business. I highly encourage you to check that out. If you haven't already, go to empoweredpodcast.com. Click that iTunes link, leave a rating and review. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to get every episode delivered right to your inbox, there's a spot there at empoweredpodcast.com for you to do that as well. And before we go, if you're listening to this in the May to June 2015 timeframe, I am starting my next mastermind here fairly soon. And the guys and girls who are in these masterminds, they are getting results. If you have been spinning your wheels, if you have been trying to figure out what your message is, or if you figured it out and you don't know what to do next, these mastermind groups are the best things that you can do. Where a hospital is for sick people, masterminds are not for sick people. They are for the high achievers. Everyone who is in my mastermind groups, they are smart people. They are hard-working people, and they are very intelligent, and they are passionate about what they do, and they know they want to surround themselves with the right people to help make it happen for themselves and for the other people in their group. So this isn't for sick people. This isn't a mastermind group isn't for people who can't figure it out or don't know what to do next. These mastermind groups are for people who really want to take their success to the next level. And I'm starting my next group in time for summer. You know, we've got podcast movement coming up. We had a couple months ago, we had New Media Expo and social media marketing world. And there's this time where you go into summer, and it's the time where you either just kind of veg out for 3 months and you play at the lake and do all these other things, or this is the time where the most successful people are going to get down to business and really double down on their own success. That's where they're going to bet on themselves, and they're really going to go after it. And I'm going to have my next group starting right at the beginning here of summer. So if you are interested in being a part of that, do a couple things. Shoot me a note, Ellery@ElleryWells.com. Or if you know you're ready, if you know this is something that you want to be a part of, you know this is an investment in your business that you want to make, you can go and click on the link there at empoweredpodcast.com/83. There'll be a link there to where you can reserve your spot today for my next mastermind. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Again, I'm your host, Ellery Wells. Have an awesome day.